Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, it is Memorial Day 2020, and while this one will be different from so many that we've had in the past, one thing remains unchanged, and that is our deep appreciation for those that have given their lives in service of our country through the United States Armed Forces. And we at Nutrien Ag Solutions hope that you all have a very safe and happy Memorial Day. Now, I wonder if Mother Nature's been a bit confused about which holiday we are celebrating here in the States, because when you look back over the weekend, we recorded more than 500,000 lightning strikes. And so there was quite a bit of natural fireworks going on in the atmosphere as a broader upper level trough sat here just pulling in on just a deep, unstable air mass, which produced a lot of severe weather and a lot of just the thunderstorm activity across the United States. When thinking about hail, this is just maximum estimated hail size for any hailstone that the radar measured that was bigger than 1/4 of an inch. And some of these hailstones across the United States, especially down there in and around the Red River Valley in parts of Texas, were just enormous. Not to say there wasn't big hail elsewhere, but some of the pictures we got, this one from Rick Smith, he is the warning coordination meteorologist out of Oklahoma and out of Norman. And this is a huge hailstone here, one of many that were found to be softball size and larger that hit this part of the United States, the southern plains here. And as you're looking at the image, you might be wondering what the heck this is. Well, that's insulation, because this particular hailstone was coming through the roofs of homes. And they have fall speeds that can be recorded well in excess of 150 miles an hour. And as they come down with sometimes weighing more than a pound each, they can do a tremendous amount of damage. Now, over the weekend, probably this picture was the one that went most viral, and I think that kid's expression kind of mimics what a lot of us were thinking. This particular stone here was measured to be 5.33 inches in diameter, and here's the person who originally posted this, and of course the picture went viral from here. So this was certainly a weekend that saw a lot of severe weather. When we look over the last 7 days at total accumulated precipitation across the country, there was a lot going on here. Specifically, though, I would like to point out the tremendous amount of flooding we had in parts of the east, specifically in parts of North and South Carolina, into parts of Virginia, and then even back here into parts of the Ohio Valley, just with that cutoff low that just would not move. Since then, the Gulf of Mexico has opened up and the temperatures, the much above average temperatures, have returned. And we're going to talk about how long we expect to see that pattern hang on. Because while it is still here, this is the situation we have. We are going to be continuing to see major flood threat in the midsection of the United States here as this cutoff low kind of sneaks through this area. Meanwhile, broader ridging is happening out west, and we do have excessive heat watches, excessive heat warnings through California and into the desert southwest. And so the pattern that is evolving here in the coming days is going to be one that's going to challenge a lot of our farming efforts. In the early morning hours this morning, as I was preparing this, we were watching a few features here. We saw over the weekend a lot of these, large squall lines that went racing across the United States. But on top of that, we did have several embedded single-celled storms, so like supercells that did produce quite a few tornado reports. But it's just opened a broad sector of the United States to a lot of thunderstorm activity. Meanwhile, we're going to keep a close eye on what's coming out of parts of Florida here as well, as it may potentially impact parts of the East Coast in the coming days. But some places getting some much needed rainfall out of this, while other places being just added to the already horrible flooding problems we're having across parts of the midsection of the United States. So as we get into the forecast, I want to show you the 7-day precip outlook from the Weather Prediction Center. And we can compare that to what would be normal over here on the right. And so once again, we have a corridor right here in the midsection of the country that is potentially going to be seeing a whole lot more heavy rain as we progress through the next few days. And as we stated, the system that is coming out of Florida here expected to impact a region that is already having major flooding problems. Outside of that, do look at the northern plains through the Canadian prairies, possibly looking at drier conditions through the next week, and parts of the eastern Corn Belt showing up a little bit drier than normal, although it will not be completely dry. We will be seeing storms coming through that area, and that extends down here into parts of the south and southeast. So from here, what I want to do next is I want you to kind of watch with me the evolution of the upper level flow pattern. And as we just play this on out, you will see a pretty sizable change overall in the pattern across North America as we work our way out through the next 10 days. So I'm using here the operational European model just to give you a flavor of this. So what do we have in the midsection of the country through the middle of this week? It's this low pressure cell right here. It's going to keep our temperatures down. It's also going to be keeping quite a bit of moisture transport out ahead of it and a destabilized atmosphere. So our thunderstorm activity up the gut of the United States here is going to continue. But what we notice is as we work our way toward the end of this week, that upper level low finally moves off to the east and kind of loses its grip. It loses its depth, and as it moves over toward the south and east, increases thunderstorm threat there. But behind it, look at the ridge that builds in for the next weekend. So we're going to be seeing a transition of the heat from the west toward the central part of the United States as we progress throughout this week. And some of these temperatures are going to be much above average, which we're going to talk about in just a few moments. Now, we can break that pattern apart really into 2 5-day time periods. This starts this morning and goes through Friday morning, and it shows you where we're expecting the heaviest rainfall. And like we saw with the WPC, we have these 2 corridors right in through here and right over in through here, while much of the rest of the United States and getting into the Canadian prairies are going to be getting a bit of a break overall from the rainfall. But the flooding threat remains high inside the 2 corridors that are going to continue to see a lot of precip. So this is just your next 5 days. Well, let's go from there to the following 5 days. And as that broader ridge builds into place here, you can see that we're going to be giving a large section of the United States a pretty sizable break from large organized low pressure systems. And with it, with this ridge coming in right in this area, we're going to be seeing some much above average temperatures too coming into the central and high plains. So that is kind of the way we're breaking apart the next 10 days or so, which again gets us out to the evening of June the 3rd here. So we're dealing with some heavy rain now, and then it's going to be breaking apart as this bigger ridge moves in. So if we look a little more detailed look here, the Storm Prediction Center today is keeping an eye on much of Texas, but you can see a broad corridor stretched here from Texas all the way to Wisconsin that has the potential for some stronger storms. But you do notice that the thunderstorm threat, that gray shading in through here, is still a wide open sector of high humidity, destabilized air. So in that whole sector, we're going to watch for storms. You'll see it in a few moments. Day 2 over here, so this will be on the 26th. The map in the upper right kind of shows you. We'll keep a close eye in and around Minneapolis over toward central Wisconsin, back into parts of eastern Iowa. And even day 3, as this whole system slowly just transitions midweek to the east, we still have a large section of the country still seeing some thunderstorm activity. Now, we're not going to walk through the details of this. I just want you to see what I mean by broad open sector of the United States for thunderstorm activity. As I just let this play out all the way till Wednesday morning, you can watch it again. The NAM model, the high-resolution NAM model, just is taking that juicy air that's in the middle part of the United States toward the Midwest, and with it producing quite a bit of thunderstorm activity. So the probability here is 50 to 80% for such a large section of the country. Meanwhile, you do notice the system coming up out of Florida will be hitting parts of South Carolina here on Tuesday night, getting into Wednesday, and that will be adding rainfall to an area that just recently saw in some places over 10 inches with the system that went through last week. So that's kind of just a snapshot at how things are going to be evolving here over this time period. We can get a little bit more, broader scale view of this by stepping into the European model. So let's go ahead and play this one forward and look at some of the individual timestamps here. So as we just work our way through Monday, again, this whole area in through here, wide risk of just shower and thunderstorm activity. And when it hits places that have seen heavy rainfall over the last several days, we're going to be getting instantly flash flooding. So we're going to watch this corridor right in through here especially, which has been very, very wet. So this gets us to this evening on Monday, and as we work our way into Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, and evening, again, we just see that same broad sector opening up for general thunderstorm risk in through here. As we go from Tuesday evening into Wednesday morning, afternoon, and evening, again, it's the same area. Now, by this time, we do start to see a bit of pattern shift. So as we get our way through the day on Thursday, and now working our way into Friday, we can see the dominance of this high pressure cell finally coming in to clear things out. This will be the time period where the ridge begins to develop and push in, which is just not nearly as conducive to the transport of the moisture north. And as a result, we're going to suppress for the end of the week and weekend much of that thunderstorm activity in an area that had been very, very wet. So this is now looking at your Saturday time frame. And as the frontal boundary pushes over here toward the southeast up through the mid-Atlantic, that's where things are going to get wet. Now, meanwhile, off the west coast of the United States, we might start to see low pressure cells develop, little cutoff lows, which could increase thunderstorm threat out west and also back them off on their extreme temperatures. But going from the weekend into early next week, this is a much drier pattern than what you're seeing right now. If we look at it exclusively at week 2, I have the GFS ensemble on the left and I have the European ensemble on the right. And certainly what you can see here is a broad sector in the midsection of the United States getting it back up into the high plains, going over toward a drier pattern. And while that's happening, parts of the Canadian prairies increase their probability of shower and thunderstorm activity, as does parts of the west coast of the United States. Now, other than that, if you look, both models are keeping down here in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Caribbean, getting over toward like the Bay of Campeche, keeping things very active. While at this point we don't see the models very robustly picking up on tropical cyclone activity, we do need to remember that due to the current position and movement of the MJO, we are moving much more favorable upper level conditions over into this part of the world in terms of letting the atmosphere exhaust into the upper levels of the atmosphere. And again, that's the MJO coming out of phase 5, going out into the western Pacific and eventually getting into the western hemisphere. And that is where we see that activity changing. Now, this is going to be something we're going to talk a lot about this week in my long-range update that'll come out on Wednesday. Specifically, what's going on right now in the Pacific, where we have been seeing these strong trade winds that have been clashing with these strong westerly wind bursts. We see in the forecast some, quick rebound here of some stronger winds. We need to pay attention to what that does to kind of our global wind pattern as we work our way into the month of June. And we will certainly be giving you an update on what's going on with La Nina in the comparison here with the North Pacific. So look forward to that with our long-range update on Wednesday. But if we just talk temperatures now, one thing I want you to know is that with the warmth that is returning, we will start to eat away at the large deficit we've built here in terms of growing degree day anomalies compared to normal. And California, you will be seeing some extreme heat this week, so watch these numbers really jump up. So let's just go ahead and take a look at it today. Where that upper level low is sitting right now over the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas, we've got quite a bit of cooler air that's going to be in place there. So temperatures in this area struggling, some places get out of the 50s. Otherwise, we're going to be seeing a lot of low 60s there. Wow, a region that has been quite cold going over to almost summer-like warmth. As we play this forward from Monday, going forward here, here's how things shape up on Tuesday. So if you notice, on Tuesday, we still have nice warmth that is spreading through the Great Lakes states, while the upper level low sits and spins here, keeping a lot of cloud cover and cooler weather down in parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, that area. Meanwhile, we will be seeing triple-digit heat that moves here in the Central Valley of California with the big ridge that's building there first. So from Wednesday into Thursday of this week, and toward the end of the week, that's when we finally start to move that ridge in place. And you're going to notice here in the high plains getting back into Montana and right here in parts of Wyoming, this particular area going over deep into the 90s. So this is the ridge that comes through and kind of breaks down our precipitation patterns, gives us over to drier and warmer conditions in the central U.S. So looking out here exclusively at days 6 through 10, that's when that ridge starts to build in, and you can see the warmth there, while we in general just deal with cooler than average weather or near average weather here in the eastern part of the United States back to Texas. But by day 11 through 15, now getting out here into the first week of June, look at the heat coming on in this area as the pattern kind of fully adjusts here to that broader ridge in the midsection of the United States. Now, talking about heat, I want to show you the last 7 days as we expand this out to a quick global outlook here. This map looks again back over the last 7 days at average temperature anomalies across the globe. And I want to take you to this part right here of Russia. We saw last week a new record set. Now, normally inside that area, the average high temperature is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Last week, they set a temperature of 78 degrees Fahrenheit inside that region, and the highly amplified pattern that is moving across much of the northern hemisphere is really setting things off for wide-ranging temperature anomalies here. Well, as we look globally at precipitation, I want you to watch a few things. I put 4 arrows on this particular map. There's one here looking at southern Brazil. We need to watch what's going on north of the Black Sea. We're going to watch specifically that large tropical cyclone here, and then you're going to see over the weekend parts of Australia, Western Australia, getting hammered by a tropical system. So as we play this forward, let's just start here first. While it was a dry week, watch what happens toward the end of it here. See the heavy precipitation coming in there? That hit the drought-parched regions in southern parts of Brazil, some very heavy rainfall. Watching it again, that's now moved to the Black Sea area. You can see, if you notice right in through here, wetter conditions did move through parts of Ukraine, getting into the Russian wheat belt as we look back here to the end of last week and the beginning of the weekend. And here it is again, more precipitation coming through. And we've been hearing reports of the powerful tropical cyclone that went up parts of eastern India and into Bangladesh, causing some major flooding problems here last week. And finally, over the weekend, a powerful system moved through right here. Let's watch it one more time. That moved through parts of Western Australia, bringing in some incredibly strong winds and some flooding rates. So see it right here, this tropical system? It is moving out, and here it hammers the western side of Australia. So globally, a lot of interesting weather going on here. To wrap it up, though, we will see much of Brazil getting some cooler than average weather over the next week. And while I don't yet see any sort of frost threat for much of Brazil's growing areas, this is certainly cool, but they are expected to go over toward dry as we work our way through the next 7 days. And just keeping an eye on the Black Sea region. The Black Sea, again, is right in through here. We notice that the highly amplified pattern moving across Europe is keeping much of Western Europe very warm. You can see Spain through France much above average, while the Black Sea and surrounding growing areas are going to see cooler than average weather and also wetter than average weather. So we'll keep an eye on it this week, and hope you all have a great week and celebrate Memorial Day in a very safe way. We'll talk to you again very soon. Thank you.